All right, this is take two. It crashed and we're back, so here we go.
Hello again, people.
Cliff, you are the only person on the show now.
That's right. It's all my show now.
Absolutely. It's all about some Cliff, as it should be.
Oh, wait. Now Speak's here, which is good since he's my subject matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're working now. We're on the Hangouts to Watch thing now, and
we probably will get more viewers right now because
yeah, it wasn't on there before. Let me mute this thing. It was weird because for anyone watching, this is the second attempt. We had a crash. We're working with the Google people and their engineering stuff, and we had a couple of issues. The first one, I did 3 tests earlier today, and I named the Hangouts. Gosh, what was it? It was Hangout Test 1, 2, and 3, or something like that. And they showed up on the Hangouts billboard page, and they were like 30-second Hangouts. And then I did a real Hangout with these guys and others, and it said, what is it? It just crashed, and it never showed up on the billboard page. So we only had like 20, 30 people watching, which is cool. But it was funny because like when we did an impromptu hangout that shows up there, it's like over 100. So I don't know, it was wild.
Well, since they started this Hangout page, and then now anytime you create one of these live Hangouts, right, the entire world can see it from what we found yesterday, right? I mean,
yeah, it's going to get. Right now we're on the main Hangouts billboard. We weren't on the last Hangout.
Right.
So it'll get crazy now. So we got to monitor the comments.
We were there for even the last Hangout, but it's that a lot of people started Hangouts after we did, and we kind of got pushed down.
No, we weren't on there at all the second time.
Initially, I thought we were.
Let me post this thing here.
I've never actually gone to that new Hangouts page. I have no idea what it even looks like.
Oh, you just on the left side of your.
Oh, I know where it is. I just never have.
Yeah, it actually shows all the live Hangouts which you can join, as well as the one you can just watch. It's pretty good.
It's the My Hangouts extension, so I just see who's hanging out there.
Yeah, that's pretty good too.
That's how I figured out you guys were hanging out.
And also, Cliff, I asked Chi about whether we could post the join link, and he said it was totally cool if you post it as long as nobody's doing anything illegal. Because I was really reluctant to do that, because on the on-air version, they specifically prohibit you from posting the public link.
Right, right.
So I said, like, are we allowed to do this? Will we get in trouble? Because I don't want to get in trouble. I get banned from whatever few things I have. And he's like, no, it's totally cool as long as nobody's breaking the law. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So I'm totally posting this now. Here's the join link. Post comment. Bam. Done. I'm such a rebel. Like Oleg.
Yes. Except you don't have the accent.
Oleg is not a rebel.
George, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Lord?
Doing pretty good. Sorry about a little joke today from you.
No, never mind. I just wanted to post that if you pull my leg, something else comes with it. But
that was a trending topic today, I think.
Which one?
It was.
I don't want to elaborate. We're now definitely on the billboard, so we got to proceed with caution.
Yes.
But yeah, you were a trending topic today.
Dan, did you get a chance to read that article or that posting from yesterday?
Which one?
The one I tagged you in.
Oh my God! Let me see. I did. I read it twice.
Twice.
I read it. I read it initially. I like skimmed it, and then you mentioned it, and then I got mentioned again today, and I read it again. And I think I disagree with you. Let me look at it. I'm trying to make sure here. Do you want me to see all the right things, or do you want me to like debate you?
I prefer debate.
Let me see here.
I love debate.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you. Let me find it here. What was the? Give me the one sentence theme, and I'll remember it.
Oh, you mean the title sentence?
Whatever. I mean, give me some.
It was the one where I was saying Google Plus is like a convention.
No, it wasn't that. It was different.
Well, that was the post. I mean, the first line of it was where I was saying it is not a social network.
All right, you said. Let's see here. Let me find it here. I'm trying to find your,
Are we going to discuss democracy again?
whatever. Yeah, because that's what I put in the post here, and now we're on the main thing, so it's going to blow up in the YouTube thing. Yes, go ahead, Sariq, while I find this post.
All that I'm saying is, I mean, if I was in President Bush's position, which I won't be again, but I mean, I don't know whether I will do the same thing. Probably I will, because I don't really think everything U.S. government does is just because the president decides to do so. There's a huge think tank or bureaucracy behind how things are done in terms of U.S. going to war with some countries. So it's unfair to say that George Bush is completely responsible for the Iraq war. But having said that, my only disagreement is we should not be saying that our primary motivation is to push democracy in all the countries.
Wait a minute. You just said it's unfair to say George Bush is totally responsible for the Iraq war?
Yeah, I think it's unfair to say that.
Of course it is.
What the hell are you talking about?
That's a
The
decision.
Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. The buck stops here, right?
That's a decision the Senate and the Congress makes. You can't
When did they make
blame one person for that.
Whoa. When did the Senate and
that.
the Congress make that decision, Anthony?
Let me explain
When
that.
they
When's the
voted
last
on.
time that Nancy Pelosi or Newt Gingrich or Harry Reid sent troops into combat? When the hell does Congress have the right to declare a war?
Let me explain.
I'm sorry, they declare
Well,
war.
they do
but
have
they
the
can't
right to
send troops
declare
into
war.
battle.
I'm the only person in a neutral position here. I know
But
you.
the president
All of you
sent
are a little
troops into
towards the
battle.
right
Are you
wing.
kidding me?
Let me explain that. What I'm saying is, I'm just 7 years into this country, and from the 7 years, I know that nothing in this country ever get done just because of the president. He can say, okay, no, but it is not entirely his executive decision.
Right, and I mean, traditionally speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but traditionally speaking, whether it be Bush or George Washington, if the United States is going to go to war, the President of the United States sends troops, which is, fully within their right, and then, like, within 90 days, he has to get approval from the Senate and the Congress to stay at war, right? That's the way that our Constitution or whatever it is.
Plus all the money,
works, right?
money comes through Congress anyway.
It's even
President can spend
even
money.
bigger than that. We're just looking at the government aspect of it. I'm saying it's even bigger than the military-industrial complex here is bipartisan. It is not. It's not just whether it's Republican.
Right, of course, and it shouldn't be.
It's bipartisan. They don't really care.
Rachel
I'm
Maddow
saying-
has a great book on this out now that was actually endorsed by a prominent conservative about that, about how it's too clean for us to go to war. It's a Space Invaders game. It's not like we're, paying a big sacrifice to go to war anymore. And I think she has a good point.
Yeah.
As much as
What do you mean we're not paying? Of course we're paying sacrifice.
No, it's not the same as World War II when we're
what?
we don't have
What,
eggs
somehow,
or milk or anything.
The guys who died this time, or
Nobody's
somehow-
blocking out their windows because we're in the Iraq War. I mean, it's different. I mean, it's nothing like the World War II or World War One.
I agree,
Nothing
it's
like
not
that.
the same. Yeah, but at the same time, it's no less devastating as far as wars go in terms of people being.
It's very
dying.
less devastating in terms of wars go. I mean, we've been in 2 world wars. It has not impacted me at all. I mean, I haven't paid any more taxes. I haven't blackened out my windows. I haven't had to use margarine instead of butter. I haven't had to have a ration card.
Right.
It's not at all impacting me like it did my parents for World War II. I mean, come on, it's a big difference.
I think Americans sometimes rationalize war because you have never been through an actual war in the American continent.
Sure
I
they
mean,
have.
Dan,
What
may I-
I-
Well, not in any of our generation.
We were
Yeah.
evacuated in India. We were evacuated, or we were in Dhaka or what's Bangladesh or whatever. And it was there was bombing going on, and my sister, I remember like my parents told her that it's fireworks, but she didn't believe it, and then they found her, she was weeping tears because she figured it out. It was bad. I mean, we've seen rough stuff. As you have too, Srik, and I'm sure Oleg has, when he was a kid. But yeah, the wars that we experience as United States citizens are nothing like overseas.
exactly. That's my
I've
point.
seen
Dan.
dead bodies when I was in India, Srik. They would pick the dead bodies up on the street and put them on the truck every day. And there were beggars when we would go to church. There were beggars.
Let me interrupt you. Even though when I said war, what I really was trying to say is human suffering.
Yeah, but like people don't personally sacrifice the United States when we go to war.
we don't even
It's a
care
big
about the
difference.
soldiers. We don't even care about the soldiers because, yeah, it's not you who is going to war. It's a soldier who is going to war, right? But what I'm saying is if a country is devastated by, you ask the Germans, you ask the entire European countries, they know what it is about getting into war. They know how devastating it is. A bullet is not going to figure out whether it's Dan McDermott or Cliff Roth or anybody. It's going to kill you, right? And then, I mean, I'm not saying that you should, but one 9/11 changed the entire world because 2,000 odd people died in New York that day. One 9/11 changed everything from the U.S. perspective. Till that day, let me put this out straight. Till that day, U.S. was refusing to accept that Pakistan is a terrorist state. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. You're right. Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Yeah, there's actually more
Well,
people
because
died
of the
in
personal
9/11, I
interest,
think,
yeah.
that died in the American Revolutionary War. Literally, more people died in 9/11 than in the American Revolutionary War, unless I'm mistaken.
I think you are.
It's a big deal. But clearly, the sacrifices that we don't make pale in comparison to the sacrifices that were made in World War II by your average American family.
Right.
Most of us who don't have a personal relative in the war see almost no difference. But in World War II, it was a dramatic deal.
I have a friend who actually, I don't know whether anybody has heard about the Kargil War. It's the last war India and Pakistan fought for just for a few icy peaks in Siachen Glacier. It was just a few days of a war. I mean, that was the last one which we ever got close to a full-scale war. It was like a few years back. And then one of my friends, he's a captain in the army, and he actually came to the city I was living in. Everybody had fun. He went to the war. A few weeks later, he died. He was trying to defend a position. He could have just left, but he did not. He tried to defend his position as well as he tried to save the people who was fighting with him, because he was a leader for that group. That incident completely changed my outlook about how war is. You're gonna really feel how war is bad only when you know somebody
Absolutely.
who's close to you is killed in such an incident. That's when it hits you. That's when you realize that this is real. This shit is real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I sometimes when I talk to average Americans, I should not be saying rednecks or anything. They don't even seem to understand that this is real human life involved here. And think about it.
They don't seem to understand, Srik. It's almost like a movie experience for them.
Exactly.
They've seen all these movies, and this is just another movie being played on TV, and that's why there's this disconnect.
I remember when people were watching Baghdad getting bombed overnight, and then people are like, wow, that's nice fireworks. You know how many innocent people died when that's happening? It is unimaginable. But again, there is no single person to blame. It is, I don't know if I say it is the capitalistic way we look at things that's driving this. You guys will bite my head out. But in a way, if you look at how it is all driven, it all comes from...
No, the responsibility, if you want to look at responsibility, it would be terrorism. If there wasn't terrorism, then this thing would have never gotten to that point.
Let me tell you this. There are Latin American countries and other countries in the world who thinks that by toppling their leaders and putting in leaders which are in agreement with our policies is also a kind of terrorism.
Well, I know they think that, but we have a different definition.
Terrorism always has existed and always will existed. You cannot fight terrorism. The only way you can defeat terrorism is to simply not be terrified, and that's it. That is the only defeation of terrorism.
It's not that simple. What happens is with
as long as you are terrorized, then the terrorist wins.
Right. I think
Not
to
like
a, I think
enemy. It's not, and you're never ever going to defeat it.
I think to a certain degree you're right, Cliff. But at the same time, I think that you can fight and decrease terrorism.
Well, yes.
And I also agree that.
Absolutely. But there you're fighting something specific, and you can take safeguards and specific measures. That's a completely different thing. But to this idea that you're ever going to be 100% safe is just pure nonsense.
Right.
Well,
and
you can get hit by a car.
For
But
the
at
United
same
States,
time-
anyway, you are far more likely to get struck by lightning, die in a car crash, or any of that than a terrorist attack. That's just reality. It hasn't changed. So, yes, 9/11 was a tragic event, don't get me wrong, but the idea that it suddenly made it a huge, drastic change in the American culture is nonsense. It has not.
No. But let's not talk about 9/11 like a single event. Okay, 9/11 was after Khobar Towers, after another New York attack in '93. There were a lot of incidents that were happening. America wasn't doing squat to stop it, and it was just continuing to happen. And that's exactly why 9/11 happened in the first place.
But at the same time, the same America actually stopped India from responding when our parliament was attacked. How do you?
Sorry.
No. You know what I'm saying. Indian parliament, the seat of the democracy, was attacked by a bunch of terrorists from Pakistan, and the Indian military was willing to move in and then clean off whatever terrorist planning or training centers were there in occupied Kashmir or whatever it is called. I don't want to get into that kind of politics.
Right, but that's what India should do, Sri, based on what I said.
But U.S. stopped it.
They
Why?
should have not listened to U.S. Just like Netanyahu.
No, the reason why U.S. stopped it is because there was U.S. presence in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And
What I'm saying is...
the politics becomes really, really difficult because...
I understand that it's difficult. I'm not saying simple. That's what I'm saying. I think what Netanyahu did, when Obama asked him to tell him when they're going to supposedly attack Iran, he said, we're not telling, basically, and he did the right thing. Because Netanyahu is not going to listen to America, even though Israel is definitely a friend and dependent on America in a lot of ways. He's not going to jeopardize the country just because to please the American president.
That is also because Israel, such a small country, considers Iran as a existential threat. You know what I'm saying? India, for example, is like, 10 times the size of Israel, or maybe bigger. It is. I mean, Pakistan was never an existential, never is such a threat to India in terms of annihilating everything in India. But it's more about the death by 1,000 cuts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was. I mean, now it is theoretically impossible because both the countries, in fact, China. There is no country. There is no region in the world like Kashmir, because 3 sides of Kashmir is by 3 different countries which have been with wars at each other, and all 3 of them have enough nuclear warheads. So that's why Kashmir is considered a nuclear flashpoint.
Right.
Part of
it's really sad if you look at the whole Indian thing. India and Pakistan essentially used to be, correct me if I'm wrong, they're basically the same people. It just happened to be different religious approach, and that's wound up being split up into 2 countries. Am I accurate in that or not?
Oh yeah, blame the British.
And stuff. And so, the whole thing there is a whole separate approach.
I'm just reading what George Cozy wrote here. The first wisdom of a powerful country should be how not to use force. In fact, the Chinese thinker who wrote The Art of War, what's his name? Sun Tzu?
Yeah.
He said, the real way to win a war is something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's by not going to war. You don't really have
the book.
What's that? Yeah, it's a great book.
The problem is that when the guy wrote this, they used to fight with stones. Okay? I mean,
No. Sun Tzu's book of art of war is even now used in American
I know.
corporate
What I'm
management.
saying is, it was written at the time when weapons like right now were non-existent. And so right now, to let somebody come in with even a dirty bomb, that's a horrible thing that can happen. So you can't just look at it like from the standpoint that, okay, let's just not fight a war. If they keep blowing up our airplanes or anything else, that's cool. We'll just, we'll take the higher ground. It only works so far. And with them, it's not going to work.
But that goes back to what Cliff said. If you are actually going to try and fight guerrilla warfare, try and fight against people who are mostly into guerrilla warfare, you can never win. You can only kind of reduce the threat. That's all.
Well, it's debatable. We've certainly done a lot of damage so far. Bin Laden is gone. A lot of these people are gone. It's definitely not the same organization it used to be. And also in terms of what they've done, they certainly haven't been able to do anything in the States so far. Even though we know for a fact.
And that's what the cost we are paying, and that's why our economy is in such ruins.
Really, if you want peace in the world, free Wi-Fi for everybody. Once you get all the people on free Wi-Fi connected to everybody else, the masses will join together and overthrow the governments.
No, that's socialist baloney. It's not going to work like this. They
already did this thing. Free Wi-Fi for everybody.
They already did this in Egypt, and look what the outcome was. How great is that now? We had this revolution, spring, whatever, and everything else. How well is that working out right now?
You never know. Give it a few years.
Hey, listen.
I'll talk to you in a few years, God willing, so to speak. And
I don't care.
Over there. Just watch.
I don't care about the government there, and I don't really care whether it's going to be an Islamic centric government that's going to come in power there. All that I care about is if it is not a Talibanized version of a government, and people are free and is able to choose what they want in terms of education, freedom, etc. I don't really care what kind of government they form. But it is better than somebody like, what's his name? The guy who died? Forgot. Somebody who makes billions of dollars milking the people and is a dictator. I think it's much better, in my perspective, not to have a dictator.
No, we know that ideal panacea is that there will be no wars and everybody's going to be happy and we can all get along and all that kind of stuff. The problem is just with society we have in the world, people don't look at it this way. You'd think people would want to work and have families and have a good life and everything else, but it just, it doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately.
Well, hey, Oleg, okay, listen, let me weigh in. On the whole topic of that book about America's drifting, making it easier to go to war than it used to be, called The Drift by Rachel Maddow, who is on MSNBC, a network that I'm guessing is not a regularly watched one by Oleg.
Or by most other people, yeah.
I want you to, Oleg, I want you to predict, and nobody else weigh in, no spoilers. Oleg, tell me who wrote this quote about Rachel Maddow's book, The Drift. All right. Drift never makes the case that war might be necessary. America would be weakened dramatically if we had underreacted to 9/11. However, Rachel Maddow makes valid arguments that our country has been drifting towards questionable wars, draining our resources without sufficient input and time. People who like Rachel will love this book. People who don't will get angry. But aggressive debate is good for America. Drift is a book worth reading. Guess who wrote that, Oleg?
I don't know. It wasn't Oleg. Karl Rove? I don't know.
Roger Ailes, chairman and CEO of Fox News, wrote that.
Okay.
Doesn't that blow your mind? Isn't that crazy?
No? Why?
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome.
If the woman makes sense, I am totally with her. I mean, I agree with the fact that you don't run all these wars and get the country bankrupt without any kind of outcome in terms of, positive outcome as a result of it. So I'm not disagreeing with her there. And if the Roger Ailes said what he said.
Yeah, I admire it because it's like, you hear all this stuff, about indoctrination, whatever, but I like people who, as I do, I look at both sides and I listen to both sides and I decide, who's full of crap or not. And that's the way to go. I mean, I'm not going to spout partisan talking points. You have to analyze stuff.
Well,
and
because
decide
you're
who's
normal.
telling the truth.
You're normal. Unfortunately, everything we see on TV in terms of parties, that's why I don't do parties. People say, "Well, you're a Republican." I'm not a Republican. I'm more Republican than Democrat, but I'm not a Republican by any stretch. I had all kinds of problems with Bush, even though he was a Republican. Okay, so I also look at it the way you do, from that standpoint. Although probably a little bit more to the right than you are, but if it makes sense, it makes sense. It makes no difference.
But at the same
It
time,
was wasn't that a disappointment though, Oleg? And then I'm sorry, Sarik, but wasn't that a disappointment when Bush won and he had majorities in both houses, and it was supposed to be the slimming down of government, and they spent like drunken sailors.
Big time disappointment.
Awful.
That's one of the problems I had with them.
And 8 years of nonstop war. I mean, come
I
on.
also had the problem with him. No, I didn't have any problems with the war. I had a problems with not winning the war. And I also had a problem.
Iraq was a problem. I mean,
What do you
there are
define
plenty
as
of
winning the
countries
war?
like in
What I define as
Africa,
winning the
whatever,
war?
What do you
are worse
define
than
as
Not
Iraq.
that difficult to figure out
The
how to
dictator
win.
that we went to dispose is gone. So what do you
Oh,
consider?
Oleg, do you think that we should have been more brutal?
Absolutely.
In this,
Not any question.
right. So
Not
I
any
mean,
question.
and I mean that's generally my point of view. So do you think like we should have just dropped bombs and had I don't want to make too many.
Okay, you don't want to make
but,
it, I'll make it.
But
Yes.
I mean,
the answer
do you
is yes.
think that we should have been less careful about killing civilians at
you look
the
at
expense
World
of
War II,
killing the bad guys?
Wait. So,
Chris, how do you
your
do that?
solution to stop terrorism is to become terrorists. Because when
No.
you start dropping bombs,
No, it's to eliminate terrorists.
that's what you
No.
are.
No, I don't get this.
No, I mean, come on. Like, you go into a country, you tell the people that don't want to be part of the war, you go over on that side of the field, and, anyone that gets in our way is going to get shot. The civilians are going to do a pretty good job of getting out of the way.
If we were that easily mobile, they
No,
would
it's not. That's not. I mean, you're still going to have civilians dead.
I mean, it's not that simple. It's not that simple, but it's pretty simple.
That's not the way the world works.
The way you win a war is the way you win a war. I mean, winning a war means you go in there and you do what was done in World War II, what was done in all the other wars. Okay, that's how you win a war.
that
You
kind
know what
of
the best part of this whole thing is?
But
That everything Cliff Roth says is attributed to Sarik because he's got screen sharing on. So Cliff can't be bothered with any kind of like retribution because he's got Sarik's face up there. That's pretty awesome.
That's right. See, because
Deniability.
if the purpose of the war
Jim
was to
Henson.
get rid of Saddam and he's been gone for a while now, the war is over. It's won. So what do you mean by win the war?
Well,
I personally think if you're going to go over there, take them over and make them a state. I think they should be a state, but that's beside the point. Either go over, take them over, or don't bother.
Cliff, Afghanistan was clearly we had to go there because
Oh yeah, I'm not
They were-
arguing Afghanistan.
yeah, 100%.
We
had to do that. I mean,
Afghanistan was a completely different ballgame.
yeah,
I'm
Saddam
with you there.
or Bin Laden had just blown the hell out of us on
I don't understand
9/11.
why it's so difficult for you guys to understand this.
It's because
Bush gets reports from Russian intelligence and British intelligence that Saddam is first of all jumping up and down. He's kicking the inspectors every other week. He's kicking them out to try, which basically implies to me and anybody with a brain thinking that the guy has something to hide. Otherwise, why would you kick inspectors
But
out?
there's dictators all over the world that we could have been going to war for the same criteria.
The guy was attacking Israel. The guy was attacking, everybody he could attack. He was trying to attack. He was the one who went to Kuwait. So we had the experience there. We knew that the guy, he killed his own people with his chemical weapons that he had. We knew all this stuff, okay?
but that's not licensed to lose American lives. I mean, there are dozens of dictators around the world who are evil and brutal and murder their people.
From the more justified war, which was Afghanistan.
Again,
He
what
is
I was
already
saying
at
was
war with
there
somebody.
was intelligence that the guy
CEO.
had weapons of mass destruction, and there was evidence that he was using them before, and he was potentially going to use them again.
He's the president of the United States. That's the CEO of the country. We expect them to know better and be wiser
What do
and
you
to
mean better?
question things.
British intelligence and Russian intelligence tells you that that's the case. You expect them to know better. What's
British
better
and
than
Russian
that?
intelligence and a $1.75 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I expect better from the United States intelligence services, and I expect better from the President of the United States, who's the leader of the free world.
Well, wait a minute.
You don't cause American lives to be lost. No.
Wait.
You don't cause American lives to be lost on a whim that you don't check out, and you blame it on subordinates. That's no different than the Nazis saying, like, I was just following orders. That's bullshit.
Wait a minute. But
I agree.
What killed the United States of America?
Wait.
Responsibility, and all this stuff was nonsense. I mean, how many Americans signed up to join the military because they thought Saddam Hussein was personally responsible for 9/11? I mean, give me a break.
Nobody.
It was all BS.
No.
Oh, you don't. There was lots of people
This is
who
just
thought
total
that.
left propaganda
that's
right there. Okay.
No.
That's not a stretch at all.
I've heard lots
Total
of
stretch.
you were directly.
No.
Kidding? Of course, everybody
What
knows
about
that
people in
Saddam was
Africa,
responsible
like-
for 9/11.
Well, the
No,
thing is,
at the
in
time, not
Africa-
everybody did. There was lots of people
I disagree.
who thought they were
I
responsible.
disagree.
Cliff, how many
Totally
brutal
disagree.
dictators are in Africa who are murdering far more people than Saddam Hussein ever did? Saddam, I'm no apologist. I mean, Saddam was an evil, murderous dictator, right? I've talked to the guy who was his son's bodyguard, and I'm actually working on an interview. But he was an evil guy. But there are far more brutal dictators in Africa. And to say that was the United States' #1 priority, and it's just a bizarre coincidence that, you know, we had interactions with him before. He absolutely, it was known to anybody who followed this stuff that he absolutely hated Osama bin Laden. They were a different sex. They despised each other, and they were like brutal enemies. And then for us to blame him for 9/11 and convince people that this is an extension of Afghanistan.
Nobody blamed him for that. What are you talking about? Nobody blamed him for 9/11.
Winston Churchill, when he was governor of Iraq, before he became prime minister, wrote a letter to the prime minister when it was a British colony. And Winston Churchill said that I feel like I am stuck here on an untamed volcano, or I'm trying to tame a volcano. There's no way to get the oil money. The people hate our guts. We have to get out, and it's a disaster. And this is like 100 years earlier, or whatever it was. Winston Churchill, who was governor of Iraq, it could have been a letter written to George, Bush. I mean, personally, but it was like decades earlier from Winston Churchill. I mean, we don't learn the mistakes of the past. I remember when Bush's father went into Iraq, and he was roundly criticized because he didn't go into Baghdad, right? He just knocked him out of Kuwait. And they said, oh, that's crazy. Let's kick ass. Let's go into Baghdad. And they said, no, we don't want to own Iraq for the next 20 years. And exactly what's happened, it skipped a generation, the wisdom. The Bush Sr. was a hell of a lot smarter about this stuff than his son was, because now we're stuck in this godforsaken country that hates us, and it's an awful situation. And young Americans are dying because American leaders are too proud to admit that they screwed up. Come on.
No, that's not. Are you kidding me? Obama goes on all these apology tours. American government is too proud. Give me a break, then. Come on.
We're still there.
Okay, so what? Are you blaming Bush for that?
I mean, you watched the last 5 minutes of ABC's This Week with the host of the week. I mean,
no, I understand. Obama can easily pull the troops out. Okay.
But what do you do? The only reason we're not just, I mean, Afghanistan's president is absolutely corrupt. We put him in office. He's totally corrupt. The whole administration's corrupt. The whole government's corrupt. They're an absolute basket case. It's a disaster. It's no better than, except they don't have bin Laden who's bombing us anymore. That's the only difference. They're absolutely corrupt gangster thugs. His brother just got whatever happened. So Afghanistan's a disaster. Iraq will fall the second we leave. So why the hell are we there? The only reason we're there, we know it's going to end up like a dual Afghanistan, okay, or a dual Vietnam. We're going to leave, and it's going to fall, and it's going to be just like we left it. The only reason we're there is because we don't have the balls to just say we screwed up and we're going to leave. because no politician wants to be on the watch when that happens.
I
So
don't
we're going to
think
stay there
Obama's
until
afraid of
we
that at
finally leave. It's going to fall. Does anyone here doubt that when we finally do pull the last American troop out, that it's going to revert to some hostile to America government?
Which is why we're still there.
That's what's going to happen.
Which is why we're still there. Because at least in my opinion,
we're there for ego. We're there for ego.
No. Here's my opinion. You go into a country and you declare war on them, and then you try to stabilize the country, right? Like that's what the quote unquote good guys should do. Once you go in and tear everything apart, you should try and restabilize it, and then you don't leave until you're convinced that it's going to be stable once you leave. Once you leave, it remains stable, and that's our dilemma right now. I think that we can all agree that the United States probably wants the country to be stable once we leave, and no one in their right mind is convinced that once we leave at this point that the country will be stable.
It won't
after
be.
we leave.
It won't be stable because we're not dealing with the kind of people that want that kind of stability. World War II was a totally different deal. U.S. rebuilt Germany, U.S. rebuilt Japan after defeating it. So that was a totally different environment, different people, different situation. But the idea here was to create a similar deal. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I agree with them.
And I think at this point, you or at least I. You want a stable country, but, at a certain point, and I think this is the point, you just got to go, well, it's not going to happen, and unfortunately,
right.
You just got to give up.
But give up with a clear understanding to everybody that things will go really badly for them. I mean, if you really want to play it right, if they do something they shouldn't be doing.
What's the solution? That's what I was talking to you about a half hour ago, Oleg. What do you do? Because you've got to save face. You don't want to... The politicians want to save face, right?
Who cares about the face? Face in front of whom? Who are you trying to appease here?
The people who are going to vote you up or down in the next election. That's the problem. That's why we're still there. I mean, come on. We've lost both of these wars. These countries are not Western democracy-type countries. They hate us. The crazy people are going to take over. There's no way stopping that. We should just straight up, tell them the way we did Pakistan right after 9/11 when we told them, you're with us or against us. If you're with us, then we'll help you find the terrorists. If you're against us, we're going to bomb you into the Stone Age. And that's what we should do. We should, just carry a big stick. We should say, listen, here's the deal. We're leaving. You do whatever the hell you want to do, whatever kind of crazy people want to rule your country. I'm sorry, it's not our freaking problem. If you harbor one single terrorist, we're going to just bomb you into the Stone Age. And you can decide which way you want to go. If you want to be an oil slick or if you want to be, a country. I'm tired of this nonsense.
I don't think that we're going to pull out of I don't think we're going to pull out of Iraq until this summer or in December when we go to war with Iran or probably Iran or North Korea, and we need those troops in a different location. That's when we're going to pull out.
If anybody thinks that Iran is a pushover, they're really mistaken. That an ancient culture is a powerful country. The first bomb that you drop on Tehran, the country will unite after whoever is in charge. They won't care that it's an Ayatollah.
Also, it's important to note, George, that I love America, but like a lot of my fellow countrymen don't understand why a lot of Iranians are upset, because there's no coverage of that stuff. Iran had a popular ruler that was overthrown by the United States, and they installed the Shah, who was pro-United States, who was a brutal dictator, and killed people to stay in power in the same way that Saddam did. Oh, just kidding, but not really. And so that's a reason there's a lot of animosity toward the United States. a lot of Americans don't even understand the Iranian history. They just think there's some crazy Muslims who hate America for no reason.
Are you kidding again?
No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
A lot of people don't understand the
thing on
history
Twitter
of Iran.
where they said that people were saying that they thought, you know, they only read about they heard about Titanic from the movie. You expect them to know Iran's history?
No, but it's true that, like, people, I mean, it's important as you evaluate all this stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, the more you know, as all of us know, everyone in this chat room here is intelligent, and everyone knows that the more you know, the more you realize how much BS and nonsense comes from the politicians and the journalists. As we've covered all these ridiculous stories in Google+, you can't expect them to do any better on international affairs, which is a much more difficult, you know, genre to cover.
Sure.
So the fact is, as we all know, there was, you know, a ruler in Iran, but the United States didn't like him, and so we overthrew him. We like straight up overthrew the guy and installed the Shah of Iran. And the Shah of Iran was a brutal dictator, very unpopular with the populace. And then when he got sick, we took him in the United States, and then they took the hostages. And I can tell you this, that my dad worked for the U.S. government, and he assigned a guy for a temporary duty. It's called a TDY for 2 weeks at the Iranian embassy, and he became one of the hostages. So I was very connected. In fact, I have somewhere around here, I have a copy of the Stars and Stripes that was signed by all the hostages after they got released. So I remember growing up. That's how Nightline got produced. I was very much into this story. But I look now, and as completely irrational, insane, and nonsensical, and like totally wrapped up in religion as opposed to common sense, as Mohammed Ahmadinejad is, I can understand the things that they cling to gain support, and that's the animosity that some of the people still feel toward the United States because of the brutal treatment they received under our personally installed dictator over their people. And so if anyone wants to wonder why Iran hates us, it's because, you know, we screwed them over and used them as pawns for our national interest at the time, or our perceived national interest at the time. And you have to know the history to really understand the facts about Iran. And George is absolutely right. They are a very rich culture. I think personally they're controlled by crazy people. I think that the average Iranian could give a damn about the nonsense that the leadership espouses. They absolutely, I have a friend who's in the U.S. intelligence service, and that's all I'll say, but based on what I heard from that friend, they absolutely stole the election. That the green guy absolutely won the presidential election, but they fixed it to make Ahmadinejad win. So they are absolutely just a dictatorship, and that's the way it is. But
can I add to what Dan said? While what Alex said is really correct, that you cannot expect an average American to go check Iran's history or even bothered about it. If somebody is actually talking about United States has to attack Iran, then probably they should. Otherwise, they should not talk about it. That's one thing. Second thing is, a lot of people in the Western world look at the East, or Middle East, or an entire Persian area as Islamic. There is a huge difference between how Iran is versus Iraq is. I mean, Iraq is dominated by the Sunnis, and Iran originally is the Parsis, and they are, you know, they are very, very different. They're
not even Arabs.
What's that?
They are not even Arabs.
They're not even Arabs.
Right.
But how many average Americans know that?
No, they don't.
So what my point is, from our point of view, everybody is a Muslim there, but it's not true. You know, and then even there are the entire root of how the Iranian culture is not based on Muhammad or the traditional sense of Islam.
It's Zoroastrian.
It's Zoroastrian, exactly. It's a big culture by itself. So I'm not defending the current establishment in Iran or whatever they're doing, but as Dan said, there's a huge history behind this. And in my opinion, doesn't matter how big a country is, even India, Pakistan, you can take anything. The whole democracy thing is a equilibrium, it's a balance. You topple it once, then it's very, very difficult to get that balance again. So by actually, I think Dan is talking about Khomeini, the original Iranian leader who was dethroned or kicked out. He was a popular leader in Iran. He was not even a Sunni Arab. Yes, he was a religious leader, I agree. But I would actually think of him as a cultural leader. Okay? And then by putting in Shah, we toppled that balance because of our interests. We wanted somebody who is favorable for us there. And yes, Shah actually destroyed the country. And
it was all about the British Iranian Petroleum Company.
Exactly. I didn't want to include petrol into this, but gas is so much. I will go on and add that even though we say weapons of mass destruction and all, you can't still forget that Iraq is the second largest oil producer in the world, one of the best high quality crudes. And the whole idea is, right now, who controls Iranian crude? I mean, Iraqi crude. It's not the Iraqi government, and even if it's the Iraqi government, it is actually
the tribal leaders.
Yeah, it is still controlled by the West. I mean, countries like Iran and Iraq actually import more gasoline than the amount of petroleum they export, because the United States and Britain is much bigger experts in terms of refining. We have much better technology and much better setup in this country to refine. So we sell gasoline to them after importing petroleum. But forget about that. My whole idea is there is not much cultural difference between Jews, Muslims, and Christians if you really look very closely. If you look at the history, they're all based on, I wouldn't say Judeo,
Abrahamic.
Yeah, it's all Abrahamic. You guys are very close to each other. Very, very, and actually, Jews and Islam is much more closer than any other religion I know. If you take Palestine, I mean, what's that city? Jerusalem, for example. How is that three religions have the one common city as their holy city? That shows how close the cultures are. But
well, it's not. The cultures are not. I wouldn't call it cultures close. They definitely have religions that are initially started in the same place.
I agree to that. They're all from Abraham, as George Corsi said.
But so, you can't say that Muslims are close to Jews. I mean, at this point in time, it's a complete. It's two totally polar opposites. Sorry.
Okay. Then let me ask you this: why do you think there is any reason for? What's that?
Why what?
That except for when it comes to pork.
What did you say?
Yeah, bacon is always divisive.
The major difference is that Muslims don't eat pork and Jews do. That's all. Pork.
But they're not supposed to. Jews aren't supposed to be eating pork.
Jews aren't?
No.
No,
pork is a no-no.
Well, what is the biggest difference between halal and what's the other one? Kosher.
Kosher. No, but that's not to say. I mean, that has nothing to do with the fact that Muslims at this point.
No. So explain to me what is the reason behind the animosity behind Muslims and Jews? What is the reason? What I can understand.
Depending which Muslims you're talking about. If you're talking about Palestinians, they feel that Jews took over their land. Okay, which is highly debatable topic, but that's the way they feel. And if you're talking about other Muslims, they basically are in there for the most part to be part of the show.
Have you heard about a mosque called Baitul Muqaddis? Baitul Muqaddis is considered the second most what is that correct word? Well, it's the most sacred place for Muslims after Mecca and Medina.
Yeah.
This particular mosque is guarded by Israeli soldiers all the time.
Well, because it's in Israel, yeah.
Right. I mean, so my whole point is there are a lot of Muslims in Israel even now.
There are, yeah.
Yeah. So if you are a Muslim and if you want to go into the second holiest place for you, and then you need a permission of a Jewish soldier for that, how do you feel about that?
No, that's not the reason why they're fighting.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying
That's not
is,
the reason they're fighting.
they're-
And certainly, this is not the reason why Iranians are totally hell bent on getting rid of Israel. That's also not because of that.
Do you think Iranians are so idiotic to think that by just trying to wipe out Israel, they as a country, and 2002, how many years, George?
It's not the Iranians, it's Ahmadinejad. There's a difference.
You think Ahmadinejad is thinking that, okay, by wiping out Israel, he's going to survive?
I don't know what he's thinking. I just know what he's saying.
That guy, I think, is a PhD in something. Do you think he's so idiotic? No, he's not idiotic. He is not going to think about wiping off Israel or anything. But what he is actually doing is he's actually putting a lot of questions in people's mind about why should Israel do this or why should Israel do that, and he's asking questions which hurt. Have you listened to the Katie Couric interview of Ahmadinejad?
No.
Dan, did you?
Sorry.
Dan? No. Dan, I can't hear you.
Sorry. No, I haven't.
Yeah, it was actually, I have never seen Katie Couric become so unsettled being the interviewer. Because Ahmadinejad started asking questions. He was in Columbia University in New York City. I was in town that day. Why would you invite somebody to I think it was Columbia University, to a meeting and then behave, agreed, this guy, we hate him, he's a dictator, blah, 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 whatever. But if he's coming to speak in a university, why do you shout at him and walk out like uncivilized people? If he has something to say, let's listen to that. Let's answer that. Because the reason why people do that is because people can't answer his questions.
Are you talking about the Columbia School of Journalism interview?
Yeah. Did you see what happened there?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Exactly. That's my point. Why? If he has some valid argument, let him put forth that, right?
Well,
Yeah,
listen,
that was. I mean,
number one, he doesn't have any valid argument, and if he has a valid argument, he's in charge of Iran. He should sit down with Obama and discuss this, not go to university and try to make his valid argument.
He was invited.
Well, that's a stupid part on the part of the university.
Yeah.
That's a separate topic.
Yeah. What I'm saying is there are a lot
First
of people,
Amendment. First Amendment.
Right. There are a lot of, maybe it doesn't apply to foreigners. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people in this country who doesn't want to listen to what that guy has to say. I'm not supporting him, but I always would love to see both sides of the argument. I don't support him. He's as brutal as anybody else out there.
Well, the guy doesn't believe in Holocaust either. So you got to listen to people you're talking to.
No. That's a wrong statement. He never said Holocaust never happened.
He originated the conference in Iran on that very topic. What are you talking about?
The Western media is so powerful that you can take anything.
Oh, come on, Sri.
I can prove it to you right now. Hold on 1 second.
There was a conference in Iran on that topic, and you're trying to tell me that he doesn't believe in this stuff?
What he said is he wants to research where Holocaust happened.
Uh-huh.
And he wants to see why it happened. And
he wants to see why it happened.
He wants to research on why it happened so that it will never happen again.
I see.
Was
that said before he said he's gonna wipe Israel off the map, or after?
Show me one single evidence where Ahmadinejad said that Holocaust never happened.
No, what I'm showing you is that there was a conference. You can say that it wasn't, but there was in Iran put together to discuss the issue of whether Holocaust occurred or not occurred. Okay.
And then he said it did not happen?
I don't know what he said, but do you think he believes that it happened if he was going to put together this conference?
That is not for me to judge. My point is, point...
I'm a programmer, I'm a logical guy. To me, that logically makes sense.
No, my point is, he is discrediting Israel. He is discrediting Israel for what they're doing against Palestinians. So that is a politician's sentence, saying that, okay, Holocaust might have happened, but Palestinians are not responsible for that.
Well, it has nothing to do with the Israeli-Palestinian problem has nothing to do with with the Holocaust? Why are you bringing that up as a part of the deal?
Right. So if the Holocaust happened in the Europe, what are Israel is doing in the Middle East?
They're not doing anything. What do you mean what they're doing? What are they doing?
So what I'm saying is, so Palestine was there, Israel was never formed, the Jews were across the world, right, in the US, in the
It
Europe.
depends how far back you want to go in history.
Correct, but now, all of a sudden, you form a country out of nowhere, and the people, the native people who are living there are suppressed. Are they suppressed right now? Yes or no?
The living people who are living there right now are conducting terrorist activities to try to make points.
In the Gaza Strip, which the
It's
area.
not just Gaza Strip. It's not just Gaza Strip. The bottom line is, to me, the whole problem can be very easily resolved. Palestinians stand up at the UN, just like Ahmadinejad did, and they say, we're dropping the whole terrorist BS. We're going to live peacefully with our neighbors. We need some help to build our country, and we want to have our own country. If that was done,
Do you think Israel will ever let them have their own country?
if they did this, Israel wouldn't have a choice.
No, they
Okay?
will not.
If they did this, Israel would not have a choice.
I'm a programmer also, and I'm logical. Israel will never let that happen.
You may be logical, but I have people from Israel with their sentiments on the subject, and I'm telling you that if this was stated like I just said, there would be peace, number one, and number two, there would be two countries. And Israel would actually pay...
When you say that who do you think in Palestine is going to say that?
Their government, obviously. Whoever's in charge of PLO right now.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is, there is too much bloodshed so far. It is not something you can solve overnight, right? It is.
But you could certainly do what is what I'm saying so difficult?
Yeah. Well, is Israel going to say that, okay, we are not going to bomb any Palestinian area once, you know?
Of course.
They have gone through this peace process number of times.
Right. And who broke the peace process over and over and over again?
It's not just them.
It's not just them.
No, it's not just them. It's both sides. It's both sides. I'm saying that it's not. I do see. I want to show you actually a professor, a Jewish professor with his parents, who was in Auschwitz, I think. He actually gave a speech in front of a crowd in an American university, and he actually totally blasted Jews for still talking about Holocaust after how many years? 70 years or 60 years of World War, and people shouted at him. Have you seen that video? I forgot his name. Hold on, but I'll show you. You want to see? You should see this.
No, but what does it have to do with anything? What I'm telling you is that they need to stop the terrorist activities, and they need to come to UN to ask for help. And if they did those two things, I think they would be in vastly superior situation. Israel's hands, if Israel was as evil as you claim, their hands would be tied to do anything, because the world is right now against Israel. It would completely turn against Israel. U.S. would turn against Israel if they did anything in that particular case. But that's not what you're seeing, okay? What do you think Palestinians accomplished by throwing all these rockets into Gaza, from Gaza into Israel? What are they accomplishing? Can you tell me?
It is not just Palestinians, and there's a lot of Lebanese who does that.
Fine, Hezbollah, all that. What I'm asking you is, what are they accomplishing by doing this? Are they making peace that way, or what? Are they making their lives better, their families' lives? What are they accomplishing?
I'm not saying that they are not doing anything wrong. You're getting me wrong. I am saying that, of course, they are also doing wrong. Terrorism is a reality. But what I'm saying is, by fighting it the wrong way, by trying to, you can't eradicate this thing. Every time more blood is spilled, think about it. If my son dies in a terrorist attack or a bomb attack from Israel, you think I will ever be able to forgive that country? No, that's the way it happened. That's the way it works.
Well, in that case, it will never get resolved. That's the case.
It will never get resolved. I can write and give it to you. It will never get resolved, because if you think you're going to suppress something by bombing that, it will never.
Well, look at the Germans. Look at the Japanese. They adjusted.
Yes, but there is no religious or cultural divide, at least religious divide there in the World War, right? And that was a time. That was a time when terrorism as a concept never bloomed much. You actually practically destroyed the leadership in Germany, right? And Europe slipped into the Iron Curtain age for how many years?
Well, part of it, not the whole Europe, but part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can always say that the East went into ruin and the West went into prosperity, if you look at it as prosperity. But
but that's because socialism doesn't work. That's not because of anything. It's because the socialism is a stupid idea in terms of.
I come from a partially social country. In fact, my country is called a Sovereign Socialist Democratic Republic, right?
Yeah.
It is just 56 years old. It is the 7th largest economy in the world. It's the 2nd fastest growing country in the world. It took America 200 years to reach what it is right now. So you think in 200 years India won't be prosperous? You look at China. It's a communist socialist country.
I heard that India is seriously screwed up right now. That's what I'm hearing from some Indians.
Well,
I'm seeing a tremendous amount of Indians living here in the States.
Of course.
I don't see a lot of people immigrating to India right now from here.
Oh, actually, in the last 3 years, a lot of people left the U.S. and went back to India. In the last 3 years.
Indians, you mean?
Indians, yes.
Okay. After they were able to do whatever they were going to do here, and they went back to India.
After the Wall Street, it's not just about programmers. A lot of doctors, people, because the modern cities in India is as good as New York City. As simple as that. The modern
there's a lot of progress, but I disagree with you. Sorry, I disagree. The socialism deal.
No, I'm not supporting socialism. What I'm saying is, I mean, as I told you before, I'm from a state where there's a lot of socialism, communism, Marxism, all that trouble, and I totally disapprove. I don't like government welfare being handed out to people who just want to live on welfare. Blah blah blah. I agree to all that, but my point is this. My point is, there will always be downtrodden in a country. There will a country can only be considered a developed country if you can take care of people who cannot survive in that country. A social safety net is necessary. Otherwise, people will always fall down and die. America says that people in the other countries, hunger death, for example, okay, there are so many hungry people dying in Africa, and we consider that a third world country or an underdeveloped nation, right? What do you say about United States when you are a multimillionaire, somebody in your family becomes so sick and the healthcare cannot cover it, and the whole family is bankrupt, and you are ending up living on social welfare? Paul Ryan, the leader of Republican who presented the budget right now, he was a social welfare kid. Now he is voting against it. What is his rationale?
His rationale is that the country basically, if the country turns into, it'll become the second Greece, is basically what his rationale. And I totally agree with him.
What I'm saying is, I am not saying that, see, he is a very capable person. That's why he became potential, blah, 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 whatever. But the reason why he could come up with that, because as a kid, when he didn't have any support, the social security net in this country supported him.
No, straight. Nobody's talking about eliminating any kind of government programs so nobody gets any help. Nobody's talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
What the problem is the current situation the way it is. It promotes, a lot of, if you look at African American community, unemployment there, it's horrible, okay? Partially it's horrible because of the lack of family situations, that so many kids are born out of wedlock, and, it's just a horrible situation.
We cannot, we have had this argument before. We cannot.
Right, but what I'm saying is that a lot of these things in the U.S. right now are there. There's definitely medical care that's being given. There is people that are.
Hold on 1 second. Hey, Cliff, thanks very much for the painting.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
We just got into this heavy political debate, which me and Oleg and Anthony usually gets into, and then. I respect all the views. I try to have a very neutral view about things, and that's why I said George Bush cannot be blamed, because because I know it's not just him, and it's not just his decision. Of course, even we can say that he is executive commander-in-chief, but there's a bigger machinery behind that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Excellent job, Cliff, without any question. We definitely agree on that topic, right? Right? Great.
Thank you.
Oh, I agree with you a lot more than you think, Oleg.
No, but in terms of the deal with Cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent job.
Right, yeah.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Anyway, don't you want to go get some sleep?
Absolutely, it's 4 o'clock in the East Coast.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh man, my wife is gonna kill me.
Yeah, Dan already. Yeah, I was wondering why your wife hasn't killed you yet.
Yeah, she's probably gonna thinking about doing it tomorrow morning. I
I don't know what Dan is. Anthony, where are you located?
You are in my same time zone.
New York State.
So you're also at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but I don't have anything to do on Sunday, so.
He's in Westchester. He's in the same time zone as I am. Right, Anthony?
Yeah, East Coast.
Yeah, so
Eastern time zone, whatever we call it.
Yeah, so my bottom line is, I don't think that a lot of things you can blame Americans, or it's very easy to say, oh, Americans did that, Americans did this. You know what I find funny? When I'm in the U.S. and when I talk to an Indian guy, or anybody outside the U.S., they blame America. I am standing up there and saying, oh, no, you can't say that because U.S. did a lot. I mean, I'm defending U.S. when I talk to them. And when I'm talking to Americans like you guys, I'm talking to you in such a way that trying to tell you that there are things which we do wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no question. No question.
So that's where I'm pushing from both sides. I'm in the middle. And I like a lot of conservative ideas. I like fiscal responsibility, fiscal conservatism, a lot of things. I don't like social welfare. I mean, to an extent, it is good.
Yeah, to some degree. Some people need to get help. There's no question about it. Their families with sick people, kids, no question.
What I'm saying is, if it goes to a certain level where motivation to work is not required anymore in a country, then that's a problem. At the same time, from the other end, I don't really appreciate going to the far right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I said, I don't know what you mean. Far right is Hitler. I don't appreciate that either. So.
No, far right is like Talibanizing a country. If you look at it, the same threat that my country faces is far right Hinduism. For example, I'm eating beef since I'm a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm a Hindu guy. My parents brought me up in a very neutral way, not politically biased, nothing. I'm eating beef, every meat in the world, and they don't really care shit about that. And then, when I grew up, when I was in my 20s, upper 20s, I'm listening to this politically far right-wing Hindus who actually give speeches saying that as a Hindu, you should not eat beef because cow is our sacred animal. That's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing 75%, 80% Hindu populated country. It is very easy. It's the exact same thing that's happening in the United States because we have a majority Christian community here. Same thing is happening in India with a majority Hindu community, and they are driving their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing is happening in the Muslim countries. Same thing is happening in the United States. That's what I meant by right wing.
Yeah.
So if you actually take the religious views and apply it to politics and push the agenda of the country to an extremity, then you are in a problem.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to say. So I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think extremism is wrong and bad for any community on both ends. Because if you look at the either left wing extremism, I can give a bunch of problems with that. Same thing with right wing, without any question.
I totally agree. That's why I said, I've seen communist parties and Marxist parties in my home state, which is totally into this, totally against any kind of investment. I'm pretty sure Hari can vouch on that. I'm talking about Kerala here, Hari.
Oh, okay.
So it's a communist state. I'm coming from there, and there is no investment there because of labor unions and all these problems. So that's why people escape from there, and that's why I escaped.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's 4 o'clock. Let's call it quits. I think Dan went to sleep. You guys
have a good night.
Continue.
Nice talking to everybody. Take care.
No, I'm going to.
Bye. Take care, George. Have a good night.
George. Night.
And
see you all.
Hari, have a good night. Anthony.
Bye, Anthony.
Already sleeping, so. Good night.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye.